Good morning, everyone. I hope you enjoy part one of our Germany adventure. Today, we are excited to share part two. There were some places that we weren't able to check off from our to see list, but our schedule was tight, so we had to proceed. We checked out of Hotel President and rented a car from Sixth. Initially, we wanted to rent a Tesla car, but we were told that there was a mileage cap. We didn't want our itinerary to be affected, so we chose a regular car instead. The plan that day was to drive north from Munich to Nuremberg and to pass by some places that we wanted to see.
This was our first time at Germany's Autobahn or motorway. There were no speed limits here except in some designated areas like work zones, urban zones, or accident prone areas. As you notice, all the other cars were zooming past us. Our first stop for the day was Dachau concentration camp. This place played a part in one of the darkest moments in world history. We came in silence and paid our respect to the victims. With remembrance, I quote from the Diary of a Young Girl by Anne Frank. What is done cannot be undone, but one can prevent it from happening again. Next stop was a town called Rothenburg ob der Tauber. Some translate the name as Red Castle over the Tauber, which is the river that flows through the town. It is a fairy tale place that is part of the romantic road. As you approach the central square, there is this corner where you can see the White Tower, which is the second city gate if you come in from the east. On the other side is St. James Church, which is used as a pilgrimage stop to Santiago de Compostela. The central square is surrounded by historic buildings, the most prominent of which is the town hall. There is also the Councilor's Tavern and many shops and restaurants in timber-framed buildings. This is the restaurant where we had lunch. Although the wait was long, I enjoyed staying under the sun and people watching. Our lunch for the day were crispy roast pork knuckles in gravy with potato dumplings, roast pork with red cabbage and also potato dumplings, and pork schnitzel and fries for me. The building called the Councilor's Tavern has a clock that chimes every hour between 10 a.m. and 10 p.m. The two doors on the sides of the clock open and reenacts the legend that a town mayor once drank a gallon of wine to save the city. We continued to walk along cobbled streets until we reached a most photographed area in Rothenburg called Plon Lane. From here you can see two of the town's gates on both sides of the yellow half-timbered building. This area has been featured in movies, music videos, comics, and even video games. Original? But there are a lot of flavors though. The Schneeballen or snowball is a deep-fried pastry which has been known for at least 400 years in this region. The classical one is dusted with confectioner's sugar and a little bit messy to eat. Next, we walked along the sentry and the ramparts of this old town. Here you can see the red roofs of the buildings from which the name Rothenburg was taken from. This town is still completely encircled with mostly original walls from the 1400s, with 40 towers and several gates. As you pass along narrow walkways, you can almost imagine the archers those days, positioned behind these arrow slits in these walls. We went to exit through one of the gates. We couldn't avoid talking about scenes involving castles, bridges, moats, dragons, knights, and princesses. The town really takes you to times and places you read about in books or watching movies. There is also a paved path outside the fortification with benches, parks, and parking lots. Our next stop was supposed to be another town called Bamberg, but Ari saw a sign in the Autobahn that read Wurzburg. He remembered that Dirk Nowitzki came from Wurzburg and joked that we should look for his house. I said we already watched him play in New Jersey, so no. Then he said Wilhelm Röntgen discovered X-ray in Wurzburg. That's important. I agreed, so we rerouted and came to Wurzburg. The town was around 45 minutes from Rothenburg. We were unprepared for this side trip, and it was difficult to navigate the place. We passed by this imposing structure which looked significant, so we stopped and took some pictures. When we looked at the sign, this plaza is actually Residenzplatz, and this building is Residence Wurzburg, or Wurzburg Palace. Later, I remembered I was actually planning to include this in our itinerary after watching Rick Steves' travel documentary, but I didn't think we would have time to check it out, so I deleted it. It is actually a UNESCO World Heritage Site. This is a stock photo of one of the halls. I think this place is more elaborate than Residence Munich and displayed the outlandish extravagance of the prince bishops who once ruled these parts. We couldn't find a parking spot in the city because we couldn't understand the signs. We parked near a hospital in front of this electric car and hoped we didn't get towed. We found the laboratory where Wilhelm Röntgen discovered X-ray in 1895. It was in the Institute of Physics in the University of Würzburg. Röntgen was the first ever recipient of the Nobel Prize. In this sign it says his discovery revolutionized medical diagnostics and non-destructive material characterization, as well as the natural sciences. Today, X-rays have countless applications in many fields of sciences. We now went back to our original route on the way to a town called Bamberg, an hour away from Würzburg. Bamberg is another UNESCO World Heritage Site with structures dating back to the 11th century. It has Europe's largest intact city walls. Parking was a headache though. The cobbled streets inside the old town were narrow and we couldn't even figure out which ones were one way and which ones were not. We ended up getting honked at a few times until we reached the Bamberg Cathedral. The Bamberg Cathedral was founded in 1002, burned down twice, and rebuilt in the 13th century. The other buildings in the Domplatz or Cathedral Plaza used to be palaces of the bishops of Bamberg.
Not like that. We have to turn around like this.
Oh, wait.
This is a Google photo of the 1462 Bamberg Old Town Hall built on an artificial island over the river Regnitz. The Old Town Hall's frescoes are well preserved with repeated restorations. Some parts of it create a three-dimensional effect, as you can see in this enlarged picture. Look at the ones with the blue circles. At this point, my videographer was already cranky and refused to take any more videos and photos, so I bribed him with a cappuccino to warm his heart. The bridge tower of the town hall was rebuilt in the 15th century. On the bridge, you can see a monument depicting the crucifixion built in 1715 and a statue of a bishop on the other side of the bridge. The arched opening of the tower connects the two shores on both sides. That was the end of our long day. We drove for another hour to Nuremberg, where we were to spend the next 2 nights in Hotel Bergschmidt, which was just across the street from the walled Nuremberg Old Town. We checked in late and the hotel manager was kind enough to let us park in his parking spot right under the sign. Unfortunately for us, the restaurants nearby were already closed when we arrived, so we just ate the free welcome apples and cookies at the reception and consumed the overpriced drinks in the hotel room's fridge. Oh well. Good night.